Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening. All right, when everybody starts coming in, our topic tonight is going to be awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm super excited. And I'm no longer silent. Francesca Nunez will be talking about domestic violence and can we still stay together. So I'm super excited to be able to talk about this topic. Usually I want to switch it around and not talk too much of the negative part of domestic violence. We can also talk about the good side sometimes. You have people that, stay together, they divorce. If they stay together, there's a lot of stuff that comes with staying together, and we're going to talk about that tonight. But before I start, I always like to start with a poem, and hopefully you guys can give a debate about it. And the poem is called They Don't Have a Clue. We as ladies sometimes, and men also that go through domestic violence, go through a lot of situations and a lot of changes. So let's start. They don't have a clue. Nobody has the slightest clue about the war she is going through. They don't know about the countless battles she fights inside her head with every day that passes. They don't know about her pillow wiping away her tears when nobody else would. She emotionally exhausted to the point where she feels nearly broken. Yet she's the one who's always tries the hardest to make others happy because she knows that it's like how it feels to feel completely worthless. So she does everything in power to make sure nobody else feels the same way. Wow. No matter how she is treated or what life decides to throw at her, she still manages to keep a smile on her face for everyone around her. And she shares her good heart and kindness with anyone in need, even though, in spite of this, she knows she's the one who truly needs it the most. Usually, as women, we go through a lot of stuff. We hide pain in certain ways. We hide shame. We hide how we don't want people to know. We are considered the strong ones. So sometimes it's okay to show weakness. It's not a flaw. We can't be strong all the time. Sometimes I'm strong, but how strong can you be? We can't be strong all the time. But in tonight's topic, we'll be discussing why is domestic violence such a big deal, reasons domestic violence victims may leave, reason a victim may reconcile after domestic violence, how an abuser becomes an abuser, can abusers even change, can a relationship survivor survive domestic violence, when staying together after domestic violence is not the right choice. All these questions are going to be answered by me tonight. And as people start coming in, you can, agree or disagree. But people who are in an abusive relationship might find themselves asking, can a relationship be saved after domestic violence? Victims may hang on to the relationship hoping the abuser, before knowing can a relationship be saved after domestic violence. Is it vital to go to the core of the issue? Of course. We have to understand that sometimes domestic violence has its verbal and physical, traits. Domestic violence is a big deal, and it's widespread and has significant consequences. According to researchers, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men are victims of physical at the hands of an intimate partner during their lives. So like I said from the beginning, we are going to sometimes a lot of people will tell you don't stay in that relationship if it's physical and verbal abuse. But I'm not going to say I believe in second chances. I'll leave it, to debate down in the program. I have people that say, no, I won't go back to him. Me, I didn't go back to my abuser. I am happily divorced since 2014 and loving it. If people choose to stay together, like I said from the beginning of the program, some people do try with counseling, talking. I'm a firm believer that depending how many years you've been together, there's an old saying that, some people don't believe in divorce. But that's, no judgmental, nothing. It's okay. While physical abuse is probably what comes to mind most often when thinking about domestic violence, there are other forms of abuse in intimate relationship, including sexual abuse, emotional abuse, economical abuse, and stalking. All this abuse have serious negative consequences. Of course it does, especially stalking. I have mentored various ladies several weeks, and stalking, vandalism has been one of the situations with one of my ladies, which is, not a good thing, but it's a bad thing, especially when the abuser doesn't recognize the situation that he's doing. So struggling to form healthy relationships, sometimes it takes a lot of work to form, healthy relationships. Sometimes you don't know the person in reality. I always say red flags. Get to know the person when you're dating. If you fall in love, research real good his background, family. It's not bad to interview him, like I said, how was his past relationship, to get to know him. It's absolutely good to do your research. Sometimes you don't want to wind up with the wrong person and then be like, oh my God, what did I do? And then comes trying to get rid of him. If your boyfriend and girlfriend, it's easy, but when it's in marriage, it's a whole different ball game. Adult victims of domestic violence also suffer from a variety of consequences, according to experts. Lots of it didn't happen with me. It was more of jealousy than anything else, more about control. But a lot of arguments do happen because of job loss, psychological problems such as post-traumatic stress disorder or eating disorder, sleep problems, chronic pain, gastro problems, low self-esteem, isolation from families and friends are some of the stuff that happens in domestic violent relationship. Mostly, sometimes I've seen isolation from friends and family. I'll go into the use. Sometimes you have the boyfriend that will try to tell the girlfriend, I don't want you hanging around with Susan or Mary. I don't like them. I don't like how they dress. I don't want them to try, to get you to do the same thing. So the boyfriend has a tendency of getting, jealous and tries to control the girlfriend, where the girlfriend will think this is love because she thinks because he's so concerned of who she talks to and how she dresses, it's not, it's all about control. And we can't allow that. We are free-spirited. I'm a very independent woman. I know what I want. I know how I want it. I like to firsthand, when I get in a relationship, is talk about the pros and cons before the person gets involved with me. I'm very active. Some people, when I started dating, didn't like that, and that was red flags for me because I was like, okay, I'm just glad I'm dating you and you're not my boyfriend yet, because if that was a concern of how active I am, then that's going to be a problem in our relationship. The fact that I can't spend enough time with you because I'm at activities, doing community work, working, helping people, that would be an issue with that individual. So thank God. Now I'm in a relationship where the person is very accepting of how active I am because he comes from that world too. But we're two different people. And I like the mutual respect that we have among ourselves and where, you know, I'll go and do everything to a certain extent with respect. Though we're not in the public scene together, my relationship is always like secretive. The less you know, the better it is, and the less input other people give, because I went through that with my late husband. Given the numerous negative outcomes for both victims, their children, domestic violence is certainly a significant problem, and the question, can a relationship be saved after domestic violence, requires an answer and a solution. Reason domestic violence victims may leave. Of course, we know why would they leave. I was among one of them because I couldn't tolerate no more of the physical and verbal abuse, because I did everything by the book. I was never outside as active as I am now. I was more of a homebody with the kids, being the good mommy and being the good wife, everything that a wifey has to do in a mother. Since domestic violence can have devastating consequences, it's no surprise why victims may want to leave. Of course, victims may leave the relationship in order to overcome the psychological trauma. There's a lot of trauma that comes into the situation. You have verbal, physical abuse, some abuse that you can't, you know, some people don't get over. You have physical, like punching, slapping, kicking. There is non-consensual sex, which is, I'm going to say, rape. And all that stuff will make somebody want to leave because they don't want to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, thinking, you know, is this person going to come at me? This is not life. So that's one of the reasons why someone would leave the relationship. They may desire to find happiness and life again, and not continue a relationship where they have low self-esteem or are cut off from friends. And that's why I was saying from the beginning, sometimes he'll tell you you're not worthy, you're not pretty enough, you can't do nothing. That would bring your low self-esteem down. You're ugly, you're worthless, and cut you off of friends that you had before, and you no longer, if they're good friends, they will come back to you. But in that relationship, when he alienates your friends away from you, sometimes it's hard to recuperate your friends back. But sometimes isolating you from your friends is a major problem. In some cases, a victim may leave simply for safety. And that's, you know, it's a major issue for the physical and verbal abuse. Safety is like my pet peeve. It's like my number one. In some cases, you have some people that don't think of safety. The abuser has threatened your life, or abuse has gotten so severe the victim is suffering from physical injury. So, like I said, punching, slapping, throwing you down the stairs, you know, cutting you, whatever he can hit you with is a physical injury. Black and blues, black eyes. So that's one of the other reasons why somebody may want to leave a domestic violence relationship. A victim may also want to leave to ensure the safety of their kids, which is first top priority, and to prevent them from being exposed to further violence. You know, the kids witness it. What they see is what they learn, and sometimes it's not like that, but what they see is what they learn. And ultimately, a victim will leave when the pain of staying is stronger than the pain of ending the abusive relationship. So they wind up leaving. Sometimes it's because enough is enough. I can't take this. Looking for a happy life, to start all over again. I'm going to tell you guys, it's not easy. It really is not easy. It takes a lot of strength to start in a relationship, because you start having trust issues. Can you trust this person? Will this person hurt me? Will I live this all over again? What is the person's background? So I usually recommend that when you are dating, go out on a few dates with the person, get to know the person, get to see the person's background, the family orientation, even around friends, so you can see his character. Even have friends, you know, oh, like, how long have you known him, without making it look obvious. But sometimes doing like a background chat, I would recommend it, because it's good to know who you're with, and then will you continue in that relationship with that person. So this is stuff that you start learning when you leave the domestic violence relationship. Reasons a victim may reconcile after domestic violence. We do have men and women that stay in a relationship even though there was abuse, because there's the I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again, I don't want to leave you, I'll get help, let's get counseling together. I would advise that route, that depending if he was the physical and verbal, if he was the initiator, the one that started it, I would recommend that he gets help first. Once he starts getting the counseling, I would intervene and join him after he had a couple of sessions, and then you start introducing yourself into the sessions with the therapist, if it's okay, if she says it's all right, or if she still wants to have a couple of sessions with him until she introduces you into the counseling, which is a good suggestion. So just as there are reasons to leave an abusive relationship, some victims may choose to stay or choose reconciliation after domestic violence because they believe there is a solution. And other reasons people may stay in an abusive relationship and choose reconciliation after domestic violence would include fear of how the abuser may react if they leave. And please, this part where I'm mentioning that when the person decides to stay, I'm fully against some of the samples that they have here, especially fear of how the abuser will react if you leave. You can't think about the abuser. If you're going to reconcile because you believe in the relationship, you can stay together, and he or she decides to get help, like I suggested earlier, let him or her get the help necessary, and then down the road speak to the therapist if it's okay, if you can come into the sessions when she feels it's all right, so then you guys can talk together. But number one, a fear of how the abuser will react, you can't really think about the abuser at this point. Think about yourself. The apprehensive of living your life on your own. Sometimes because of financials, you start thinking, how I'm going to pay this. He was helping me. I'm a firm believer that after I divorced my husband, I was blessed that I can do it by myself. I lived in an apartment by myself, and I did it solo. So it can happen if you put your mindset. Normalization of abuse due to witnessing abuse as the child. The victim does not recognize the relationship as unhealthy. That's a major issue right there, because sometimes in a relationship, normalizing the abuse, you can't normalize the abuse. It happened, and you can't just justify it as a toxic relationship. And you got to know, if you're going to save the relationship, you got to still go in with that mindset, in that, will the counseling help? Is it worth it? But you got to understand that if you lived 15 years with this person, that relationship was toxic. There's not normalizing anything or thinking it can be normal. Again, it takes a while, depending what happened. Like I said, I believe in second chances. It wasn't in my book. I divorced, and I'm divorced, and I'm happily divorced, and I moved on. Feeling ashamed of admitting the relationship was abusive. Sometimes, like I said, you'll stay in a relationship because you don't want nobody to say or ask you why the relationship ended. So very important. There's no time to feel ashamed. I've been there, done that. I didn't want nobody to know what this individual was doing to me. And at one point, I started learning that if I don't speak up and talk, I can be saving a man or a woman or a youth's life by speaking up, and then looking in reality what a domestic violence survivor look like. So feeling ashamed is a no-no. The abuser may intimidate the partner into staying, reconciling by threatening violence or blackmail. I learned throughout the years, the less you say, the better it is. I was very open to my first husband. There was stuff that he knew about me that happened in the past. I thank God he never threw it in my face. Other people would do that. So be very careful, even though the closeness that you have in a relationship, I would suggest that the less you say, the better it is. There's some stuff that, your partner don't need to know. That part can stay with you the rest of your life. Though you come together as one, there's no reason you have to say certain things that happened in your past so he doesn't, or how many partners you have. I have seen relationships that usually argue like, oh, before you married me, you had 5 men. So there's no reason for you to say I had 5 boyfriends or I had 2 marriages. It's none of their business. But if the relationship is solid, then, it depends. You take it as it comes. Lack of self-esteem or belief the abuser was not their fault. Sometimes we have a tendency is, did I get him angry? What did I set him off with? What did I do? What did I cook that wasn't right? Did I not clean his clothes properly? Did I not, clean the house the way he wanted to? So sometimes we'll look like the blame game and say, oh, he hit me because I did something, or I said something to him. Hello? Yes? I will continue. Okay. This is the biggest one. You love the abuser. He, unfortunately, in relationships, we do have, and I don't like saying it, and it's hard, and I'm researching that just to find out as to why. You have women out there and men out there that like being abused. I don't like seeing that because who likes being abused? I certainly didn't. But you have relationships that they'll slap each other, punch each other, argue, and if it's not one day that they're not arguing, they don't feel right. That right there, I can't understand. That one right there, I'm not going to be able to explain real good, but they do love the abuser. One day she sees he's quiet and he's not doing nothing, she'll instigate or he'll instigate an argument, and I cannot process how somebody would like to argue every single day and see the need that if one day went by and you didn't argue, you'll start doing it the next day. So it's something like, I would call it like a fix. They got so used to the arguments and stuff that a day that goes by and it doesn't happen, they look for something to make it happen. I'm a firm believer that I would not look to have a fight. I would not look for that. I think, my peace of mind is non-negotiable. Dependency on the abuser due to disability. Sometimes we have people that stay with their partner because, they're disabled. Because they think they can't do it on their own, because this sole provider person takes care of them, the lack of feeling alone. But, like I said, there's different facilities, there's senior buildings, subsidy, Section 8, if that comes to that situation, if you're in a wheelchair, non-body, movement or, blind, I always say there's an outlet. Never think because you're disabled, you're not capable of doing anything. To me, I've seen people that are vision impaired living on their own, people in wheelchairs living on their own. Heck, I see people on walkers living on their own, and they're doing it. So it's possible that you can leave someone that's abusing you, of course, and move on. Cultural factors such as religion beliefs that frown upon divorce. Sometimes he can be Catholic, and you're not Catholic. He can be Christian, Protestant, Jewish, or whatever, and sometimes that can bring a situation into the marriage also. I went through that a little bit in the past, so I can say this is so much true. Inability for financial support themselves in a summary. As a victim may stay in an abusive relationship and choose to return to the relationship after domestic violence because the victim has nowhere else to live, relies on the abuser for financial support, or believes the abuser is normal or warranted because of the victim's flaws. This situation right here, we have a lot of people that stay together because of financial support. They think they can't live by themselves. Please understand that if you're going to reconcile and stay in a relationship, it's because you want to save the relationship again and think there's a second chance. But never, when you're going to leave the relationship, think about going back because you feel that you have to rely on that person because he's the main support. I have to put it out there. If I had to get 2 jobs, I did, and I'm going to say this. I did the damn thing. If I had to get 2 jobs, I got 2 jobs. I disc jockeyed, and I was a nurse. So to pay whatever I had to pay, if I had to have 2 or 3 jobs, I made it happen. So it is possible. The victim may also truly love the abuser and hope he will, he will change. Of course, like I said, I'm a firm believer that, it can happen. Some people have backgrounds of abuse, child abuse, molestation, stuff that happens when they were growing up and probably didn't get the necessary counseling that they needed. And once they got married, all that started coming back again. Triggers, I always call it as triggers. Other warns that domestic violence is cynical, meaning that it is a repeated pattern of abuse. Yes, it is. It is a pattern of abuse. I'm not ashamed to say it. My ex-husband, after we got divorced, he got married twice, and twice he got divorced 6 months in the marriage and 2 years in another marriage because he was physically and verbal abusive, and they were not going to tolerate that. They knew of my existence, and they knew what happened to me, and they were like, no. She lasted that long. Praise up that I stayed that long in the marriage, but these women managed to get out of the marriage because they saw the sign that he was an abuser. The cycle begins with threats of harm from the abuser, followed by an abusive outburst during which the abuser physically and verbally attacks you. Sometimes, the abuser has a tendency of saying, it's your fault, you got me angry, why do you do this? I tell you over and over not to do this, not to put that there, I like this a certain way. There was a movie that caught my eye, and it's Sleeping with the Enemy. It was Julia Roberts, and she was physically and verbally abused. Her husband had a certain way how he put the canned foods in the cabinet. In the bathroom, he had the hand towel with the towels paired up evenly. So if one was down, she got flat because of that, and she had to run in the bathroom and even the towel and the hand towel even. That's called control. And because he's a narcissist, he had issues. When I watched the whole movie and she finally left him and went on her own, he tracked her down, and she put her towels however she wanted, bed however she wanted, the canned goods in the cabinet how she wanted. But when he tracked her down and managed to get inside the apartment, and she saw her towels straight and the canned foods all in, if they were green beans, they were stacked up together, carrots stacked up together, she knew that was the sign that he was in the apartment. So the ending, what happened was, just deserved, because she no longer wanted to be with him. What this means is that if you choose reconciliation after domestic violence, your abuser may promise to change, but you may find yourself back in the same cycle of domestic violence. Like I said, I'm a firm believer of second chances if the person is really, really faithfully going to change, but sometimes that's not the case. I had mine that always told me, I'm not going to do it again, I'm sorry, I'm going to get counseling. He did get counseling, it didn't work. We got counseling from a preacher, it didn't work, and the end results was divorce, because they say I'm sorry, but how many times you could keep saying sorry if you're going to keep the same cycle over and over and over? Who wants to get abused? Who wants to be verbally abused? No one. While getting trapped in the cycle of domestic violence, in reality, so many victims, this does not mean that staying together after domestic violence is out of the question in every situation. Like I said, if the counseling works and he really, really decides to change, kudos, because, it can happen. Like I said, sometimes I'm not here to break a relationship. I had many that I mentored that went back, but saw that they weren't going to change, and they broke up again, and they had to get a restraining order because I didn't want to be the one that's mentoring them. I didn't want to be the one to say, I told you so. They would talk to me and say, listen, I feel sorry for him. He's saying I'm sorry. He won't do it again. I just suggested be very careful. That's the old song. That's the broken record where they say I'm sorry and they do it again. And unfortunately, that relationship broke up again because the person was very controlling, hit her all the time, and he was I call it the honeymoon stage. A month and two, he was okay. 3 months in, she would text me and tell me, I got some videos to send you, some audios, and I'm like, get out of there and leave him. I don't want to tell you I told you so. I just gave you, your space and a chance to see for yourself that he wasn't going to change, and that's how it was. Like I said, there are marriages that stay together. They do get help, and they do, surpass this domestic violence. Some don't. Like I said, I left mine because I couldn't do it no more. For example, sometimes domestic violence is so severe and dangerous to the victim that there's no choice but to leave. In my case, I had to leave. He was horrible. Horrible, and I have to say it. However, there are other situations where there might be a single act of violence. Like I said, okay, if he slapped you one time, I'm not going to say it's something you got to tolerate, but it's something you have to think and question as to why it led up to him hitting you. We should not ever allow that. If he does say, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. I don't know why I did that. Okay, I'm not going to say you should let it pass, but just be alert that it doesn't happen, again. That it doesn't happen again. But those are an example that sometimes a single act might be something forgiven, like, oh, okay, where we should never allow someone to touch us. I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but once they put hands on you, you question that. And you say you're not going to tolerate that. And make it very, very clear. And if it doesn't happen again, like I said, if it's a one-time thing and it never happens again and he's genuinely sorry, okay. Just be very careful. And always have that mindset that you have to watch out that it doesn't happen again. Abuser will need some sort of treatment or intervention to stop this pattern of violence in a relationship. It's very important that if you're going to reconcile and you really want to stay with your wife and your husband, intervention is needed, and absolutely intense therapy if it's a repeated cycle. Like I said, there's some people that stay together. I don't judge that. Absolutely, I don't say you're crazy. You lost your marbles. I'm not here for that. I believe in love, and I believe in giving second chances. But how many can you give? That's the question at hand. It requires commitment and hard work. It is possible for an abuser to get treatment and learn healthier ways of behaving in a relationship. Reconciliation after abuse is possible if the abuser is willing to make change and show commitment to making that change last. Like I said, let him get the treatment first, then speak to the counselor when you can intervene and join counseling. And it's a lot of hard work to surpass whatever the individual did to you. It does take a lot of commitment. I give kudos for whoever gave a second chance and were able to stay in the relationship. because I've seen people together 30, 40 years, and they tell me it hasn't been easy. He did this to me. He did that to me. I did this to him, and we managed to work it out. I don't judge and I don't call them crazy, because I said love is beautiful, but it's not supposed to hurt. Some questions arises again. Can a relationship be saved from domestic violence? Sometimes I say yes, and sometimes I say no. Well, staying together after domestic violence can have benefits so as long as the abuser changes. Ending a relationship abruptly after an incident of domestic violence could tear a family apart and leave children without the emotional and financial support of a second parent. Of course, we got to think about our children, but also we have to know how many incidents has it been in the relationship. I'm not saying after the first slap, which I'm not condoning. I'm not saying that the first slap you should tolerate it. I know people that walk away from the first slap, and I know people that don't. Looking at what severity of the domestic violence was in the relationship, when you have, emotional and financial support, and he recognized or she recognized what she did, and it's workable. Like I said, it takes a lot of commitment and hard work to stay together again after an incident, because, if the person does it again and slaps me, I'll be the one to walk away and be like, no matter how much I love you, I will not stay. If he even gets on his hands and knees and say, I'll never do it again, that's not a chance I can't take because of what I already lived through. Now, if he gets counseling down the road and recognizes the fact that he did what he did to me was wrong, and he shows me and demonstrates that, he was wrong, maybe I can be forgiving. But if you get the proper treatment first, and I see, and he tells me, I'm not going to lose you, I'm going to get counseling, let me get the counseling first, and let me try to win you back, and intervene me into the sessions and see how I feel if I decide to stay back in the relationship. But 9 out of 10, I'm the first one to say that if you put your hands on me again, I'll leave. And in another relationship, if you try it, yes, I believe in second chances, but with me, it would be impossible of a second chance. If you hit me, that's it, I'm walking away. I don't need to be in a relationship where there's going to be, that issue, and me always, turning my back as to where, are you having a good day or a bad day, or what to expect. That's very stressful. It causes a lot of anxiety. No, I'm not setting myself up for that. They are repeating the pattern. This means that a domestic abuser will need professional intervention to learn about the harmfulness of violence and discover the healthy ways of interacting into the intimate relationship. Like I said, sometimes he might have a background where the father abused him, like when I say physically hitting him, verbally saying, you're nothing, you're going to grow up to be nothing. And maybe he resulted in where if he did his homework the wrong way, the father hit him, and that was his way of toughening up his son. And when he grows up, he thinks, he hates his father, but he starts thinking about what the father did. And he starts thinking that in a relationship, when he sees something wrong, that's the way to handle that situation. That's why I said that intense therapy is very much needed and very important, so the person is able to salvage the relationship. The answer to can a domestic abuser change is that they can, but is it difficult or requires them to commit the work of changing? Simplifying, promising never to do it again is not enough to promote lasting change. Until he gets the proper help, I can't believe I'll never do it again. I heard it in my relationship like over 80 times, and it was the same thing. The arguments were more aggressive, and the situation got worse. So me hearing I'll never do it again, me hearing it with my other domestic violence survivors and messages when I see the husband or the boyfriend arguing, calling them a piece of manure, because I don't want to say the word, or they'll amount to nothing, or you won't be able to live with me, without me, who's gonna look at you, you're ugly. stuff like that to bring the women down and the men down is some of the stuff they'll utilize to manipulate you. In order for an abuser to make last changing, he must identify the root of the cause of domestic violence and heal from them. Sometimes it's very hard for the woman and the man to admit that they are an abuser. Some get satisfaction from hitting you because they feel like the man. Women also, they do get satisfaction because they feel like they're putting you on check. No, we're not 5 years old. Everything can be possible by talking. If communication is not the key anymore, then I would say there's nothing to salvage. And the abuser has to own up to everything. And when I say that if he's going to seek counseling and y'all separate to go back together, when he's done the counseling, he has to admit for anything, the physical and the verbal, into all graphically. If he punched you, gave you a black eye, sent you to the hospital, he has to tell the therapist. Don't sugarcoat nothing. Distorted thoughts are the common cause of domestic violence. Getting control over those thoughts can help abusers to manage their emotions so they don't have to act out in violence or an intimate relationship. Sometimes the fact that they go through their own emotions thinking they're not man enough. They think hitting a woman, they make them, macho. Also thinking in their heads, like, if you even said to them they won't amount to nothing, you don't got a job, that's, verbally abusing them, and that can start a chain of reaction to hit you. Learning to manage their emotions in this way requires professional intervention with a psychologist or a counselor. We ourselves can't get into our husband's head or our wife's head to figure out as to why they do those actions. To this day, I said my husband came from a family that the mother was sweet, the father was sweet, the brothers were very sweet. There was no domestic violence in any of the relationship of the brothers. There were some that were going to church all their lives since they were growing and older, going to church, so they never, to find out that me and their brother ended in divorce, and because of what happened, till this day they still, the cousins, the brothers, like, wow, I didn't think my brother was like that. To look at you guys, I wouldn't think you was going through that. So they really I'm not going to say they didn't believe it, but they found it very hard to believe that it was going on. But they did see some arguments, some outbursts. They would talk to him like, don't talk to her like that, communicate with her. So he had like past aggression from whatever went through, school or whatever. He had his demons fighting inside, but it wasn't in his family, because his family, I had to meet them, and they were very, close-knit. They didn't tolerate that. Broke my heart when his father found out, because he didn't like the word divorce at all with us. Out of all the brothers, I was the only one that was married to him the longest. Everybody else was broken up, hooking up again and stuff like that. But I was the longest one to be married to the brother. Some signs that a domestic abuser has changed includes, look at the signs that, like I said, if someone decides to stay with and give a second chance, the abuser has fewer negative reactions to conflict. One day, I'm saying you can test him. You can do something that he does not like and see if it'll trigger him and set him off. And if it doesn't, the change is coming, where there's a negative reaction and it's less intensive. Maybe there was some stuff that he saw that you did before doesn't bother him, but if you instigate or try to do to see if you set him off and to see if it doesn't bother him, the change is there. The partner evaluates his own emotion instead of blaming you when he's stressed. I used to always ask him how was work. He used to tell me to shut the F up, mind my business, leave him alone, get the dinner ready, and mind my P's and Q's. That let me know he had a stressful day at work, and he didn't want to tell me what went wrong. But if he was able to now elevate that to conversating, well, I had a bad day, I got in a fight with my boss or a coworker. If he's able to communicate that with you, that's a change. You and your partner are able to manage conflicts in a healthier manner without violence or verbal attack. What I just finished saying, that if before you used to ask him how it was working, he told you shut up, and now if you ask him how it was working, he communicates what happened, the change is there. When upset, your partner is able to calm himself and behave rationally without becoming violent or threatening. I know sometimes we have our bad days, but in a domestic violence relationship, if he had a tendency of raising his voice and screaming and he manages to control that, that is change. You feel safe, respected, as if you had the freedom to make your own decision. If he told you not to hang out with friends, and now that he got the help that he needed, he tells you hang out with Susan, Mary, and he lets you out more and more with your friends, there's a change in the relationship, so the therapy is helping. Your surrounding is safe. He's making you feel safe. He's respecting you more. Keep in mind that you must see evidence of the actual lasting change to achieve reconciliation after domestic violence. Temporary change is a no-no. It can't be like, today I'm sorry I did this, and then you went 4 months counseling and you think you're all right, and then you come back to the relationship, and like I said, something happens and it gets set off again. You have to, the change has to maintain. It doesn't have to be temporary. Followed by inadvertently to previous violence behavior is not enough to say that a relationship can be saved after domestic violence. Keep in mind that domestic violence often involves patterns whereby the abuser engages in violence, promising to change afterwards, but returns back to the violent ways. That's what I have said. And these are the pros, and where the person, you decide to stay with them, and these are the changes that are coming. And sometimes it doesn't happen that way. So these facts that I'm throwing out here, like I said, I've seen many relationships that stay together. The person has changed. There's never been any altercation of physical or verbal abuse. When asking yourself, can an abusive marriage be saved, you must be able to evaluate whether your partner is actually changing, that he's getting the treatment necessary, the counseling necessary, and that you and yourself are able to be involved after he got his lengthy treatment, asking the counselor, when can you intervene when the counselor says it's okay. In case of after domestic violence reconciliation, actions truly do speak louder than words. He or she has to put in the work, the commitment, and absolutely the counseling for you guys to stay together. Again, if it's just the first incident, I'm not going to say it can be overlooked, but if he sees there's a problem and he wants to rectify it right then and there, I can say you can give a second chance. Depends on the situation and the severity of what happened. When staying together after domestic violence is not the right choice, then you have the cons. In my case, it wasn't the right choice. I tried several times to accept it'll never happen again, and the several times with no changes, and I saw like enough is enough. There may be a situation where the abuser can change through a commitment to getting treatment and doing the hard work necessary to make last changes that do not involve violence. On the other hand, there are situations where an abuser cannot or will not change, and staying together after domestic violence is not the best choice. Sometimes it's not. It depends on the severity of what's going on, how severe was the physical and the verbal abuse. Sometimes you can't stay together for peace of mind, for a safety reason. I would look into really analyzing real good whether to reconcile and stay together. Like I said, it takes a lot of work. Many experts do warn that domestic violence abuse rarely change. Like I said, my husband, after we divorced, he married twice. That in itself is letting you know he didn't change. I don't see, if I see a fifth wife coming in the picture, who knows? He's never going to change. Even those who can a relationship be saved after domestic believe that change is possible, to warn that it's extremely difficult and requires significant time and effort. Of course, it does. Does anybody have any questions while I still continue? Okay, so it's possible to warn that it's extremely difficult and requires significant time and effort. The process of change can be painful for both the abuser and the victim, and rarely does domestic violence get better overnight. That's why I said that it's very extremely important that you analyze, are you really sure you want to stay with the person? Is it really worth it? Sometimes you have to be emotionally prepared of the outcome. There are sets of boundaries between you and the abusers that can keep you safe from further abuse while both you and the abuser are working to heal. As the abuser is trying to overcome his situation, you yourself have to heal, depending was it verbal or physical, to deal with the after fact while he's getting help. Are you sure that you want to continue in the relationship? If you choose to reconcile after separation, it's best to have a zero tolerance policy for future violence. If you find that the abuser returns to violence after domestic violence, reconciliation is probably not possible. If you see that he returns back to his ways, then there's no way you can stay together. Ultimately, remaining in an abusive situation can damage your mental health, place your children at risk of trauma and abuse, and even seriously threaten your physical safety. That's why I said it's very important that you see first, is it possible to stay together? Is it worth it? Look at the severity of whatever happened in your relationship before you even look in trying to stay together. The well-being and your safety, to me, when I'm mentoring, is a must. I don't look at nothing else. So while there may be situations when an abuser can change after getting help, putting forth a serious effort, true lasting change is difficult. If your partner is not able to stop the abuse, you may have to end the relationship with your own safety and well-being. Absolutely look at your safety and your well-being, and not also that, your mental health. A lot of this stuff really takes a toll on you. A lot to process, a lot to change, trust issues down the road. But if you see that he is not changing, please look at your safety and well-being. It's a must. The conclusion, the answer to can a relationship be saved after domestic violence will be differently for each relationship. Like I said, it depending on what happened. While many experts warn that domestic violence abusers rarely change, it's possible to reconcile after domestic violence if the abuser is willing to accept professional help and make true to his word upon the abuser willing to put forth the hard work and to grow and change so that he can manage his stress, conflict without becoming violent or verbally aggressive. Like I said, I'm a firm believer that there can be second chances. It just depends if he or she ultimately put the work, and I said the hard work that goes into it, depending on the situation that went down. If after a period of counseling and or separation, the abuser continues to act violently, it's likely that you are stuck in the same repeated cycle of domestic violence. You yourself ultimately have to see, am I going to stay with this person? This person is not going to change. He's returning to his ways. Then you yourself have to know, am I going to stay with this person? You have to ultimately make the decision yourself. In this case, you may have to make the painful decision to end the relationship or marriage to protect your physical and mental well-being, as well as the emotional safety of your children. If there's children involved, please think about them first. They are our future. We don't need them damaged and traumatized. Finding the answer to can a relationship be saved after domestic violence is not easy. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you yes or no. Can it be saved? Sometimes yes and sometimes no. But I can never really have the answer to that question because, like I said, depending on the situation of what went down, you yourself would know whether you will continue in that relationship. If you are choosing whether or not to reconcile after domestic violence, it's important to consult with a professional, including a mental health provider and perhaps even a pastor or a religious professional. I've done this. I'm going to tell you the truth. I've done this. And like I said, nothing has changed. I'm not saying that it can't happen with the other couples, but I tried it myself with a pastor. And even with a pastor, he kept telling him, please tell me you would never put your hands on her again. And crying, he would say it would never happen again. And, of course, I have to say, 2 months in, everything was peaches and creams, and he started all over again. So pass her out the window because he didn't change. You should carefully weigh the pros and cons of leaving. Saving the relationship at the end of the day. If you cannot be safe in a relationship, you deserve to be free from pain of emotional and physical abuse. Life is beautiful. If you see that you cannot be together, please look for your safety. Look for your child's safety. A marriage that's happier and healthier is a beautiful marriage. A marriage that's toxic and verbally and physically abusive is not the route to go. If you feel disconnected or frustrated about the state of your marriage, but you want to avoid separation or divorce, there is the marriage.com course meant for married couples. Is an excellent resource to help you overcome the most challenging aspect of your marriage. There is counseling out there, everything you need to know about domestic violence counseling, domestic violence and abuse, 4 types of domestic violence and how to recognize them. Know the signs of everything that's going on. Like I said, I'm a firm believer on second chances, but please, we have to be absolutely careful. Like I said, it didn't work for me. I tried my best. I had children, in the marriage, within the marriage, 2 boys and 1 daughter, and I tried my best to give them, a perfect life, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, and to me, my happiness, their happiness came first, and if it wasn't going to work out, so be it. I am happily divorced, like I said, and kudos to whoever stayed together because, like I said, I believe in second chances. We have good men out there. We have good women out there. And, I've seen marriages that lasted a lifetime. No marriage is perfect. Anybody tells me a marriage is perfect, I'm going to say no way. There has to be situations going on, disagreements going on financially, disagreements on stuff with family. It does happen. No marriage is picture perfect. I have interviewed several people that were married, and they said, listen, he had stuff that annoyed me. I had stuff that annoyed him, and no marriage was perfect. But we worked through, our differences, and here we are celebrating 39 years. I've seen people that are celebrating 50, and I said, what is the secret? Please tell me how you lasted 50 years. And they'll tell me it hasn't been easy. I had to tolerate a lot of stuff. He wasn't physically abusive or verbal abusive, but there was a lot of stuff I had to tolerate, stuff that I seen that I had to chew up and not say nothing, but they were together. I've seen people together for 50 years, and I said, kudos, hallelujah, congratulations. But like I said, it's very important to know the signs. I wanted to switch it up this week, and where I always talk about the physical and the verbal abuse, let's talk about how about when someone decides to stay together. Many times I've spoken where people have broken up. I've had a lot of kings and queens that opinionated on my podcast saying, I broke up with him, I couldn't take it no more, I thought about my kids, and I left. So I decided to switch it up this week and decided to speak about when people decide to stay together, no matter what, and seek the counseling, he or she much needed, to move forward. And like I said, would I allow it in another relationship to be touched? Absolutely not. Would I give a second chance? Absolutely, absolutely not. If you slap and you punch me and you hit me, that's it. It's deuces for you. I would literally leave. Literally leave. I wouldn't tolerate it. So to me, my peace of mind, my safety is very important. I would never want my kids going through anything like this. I'm glad that we have an open line of communication. And if they're in a relationship, I always often ask, how's it going? How's everything? Don't tolerate this. Don't tolerate that. And please don't allow this and don't allow that. Also, I mentor my own friends with the pros and cons because, like I said, no boyfriend and girlfriend relationship is the same. It's different from marriage. You may live together. It's easier to leave a boyfriend. It's harder to leave a husband. He'll start with don't leave me, I'm nothing without you, or what you're going to do without me. But like I said, it's possible. It's possible. Like I said, it takes a lot of work. I thank God for being in my life, for actually guiding me and that faith that I had to be who I am today. Like I said, I meditate, I journal a lot. I'm far from perfect. If my partner gets me upset, I journal, and I'll say what he upset me about, but he has never, ever put his hands on me. He's not a fighter. He's more of I'll let you hoot and hot and won't pay attention to you. And I'll write sometimes stuff down like what upset me that day. It can be even if he's sitting down and looking at a documentary and I wanted to talk at that time and you didn't pay attention to me, it would be like set it off in my head. I'll be like, what's wrong with him? And I'll start journaling and I'll start listening to music, and he's in his moment, I'm in my moment. When I see he's not, distracted or he stops the documentary, I'll go by him and ask him, how was work? How was everything? And I choose not to fight because I said at the end of the day, you got to think about, was it worth it? Was the argument worth it? At the end of the day, you got to think about it. Sometimes the next day you'll be like, oh, I argued with him. And now that I think about it, was it worth it? Was it even valid? We're still here. How can it be different? So sometimes we're under construction. I always say I'm under construction, and we're not perfect. But in this day and age I'm living now, it's different. I rather have peace. Not two people are the same. Sometimes you got to, meet people where they're at and understand that you can be a happy person. The person can be serious. That's their trait, but that doesn't make them a bad person. I'm more lovable, huggable, jumping here and down like some clown, and he can be quiet. So sometimes I got to accept that what I had in the past might be different what I have now in the present. And it's called meeting the person halfway, understanding that two people are not going to be the same. But that doesn't mean that the person is a weirdo and the person is a bad person. Get to study the person, get to know the person, and give them their space if that person also gives you your space. So I'm at a point in my life that if I see an argument, I walk away. I move away. I analyze when I see the person arguing, like, does it even make sense at this point? And I think about it, and I say, I'm not even in that conversation, but I'm thinking to myself, is it even worth these two arguing about what? This one took the car, you didn't let me use it, and it's something like I always say is BS. Get over it, keep it moving. Always look at the argument and ask yourself, is it valid? Is it worth to even approach the person? Can you get up one day and say, Kumbaya, I'm not even going to bother to discuss the situation? But if something does bother you and you want to communicate with your partner, do it in a fashionable way by letting the person relax. If they got out of work, give them their time, and then come in and say, I would like to speak to you about something that you did yesterday that I didn't like. Can we discuss it without arguing? That's communication. That's, opening that line. Now, if he decides that he doesn't want to talk about it and saw that he done nothing wrong, just walk away, give it a couple of days, and be like, listen, you said this you wasn't doing it wrong, but in my eyes, I saw that you was doing it wrong. Can we still try to talk about it? And then get, the line of communication and understanding. Communication is key rather than fighting. Sometimes they can take you to that point, they can take you there, but breathe in and breathe out. Like I said, I'm under construction. Sometimes I get upset over little things, and I sit in the bed and I say, is it worth it to approach him and say, okay, you did this, or you spoke too loud while I was reading a book, or you had this, so high and it was annoying me. I sit and I analyze it. Should I approach him? Should I just wait? You got to know when you're going to say it and how you're going to say it, and the state of mind that you're in before you even go. Because I can see him in front of the computer looking at a documentary, and how I sound that I come and be like, hey, you did this last night, and you put the music so loud. Can you stop it? Where it could be, honey, sweetheart, can I speak to you? Last night you put the music so loud, and it was annoying me. Can we try to see if we can come to a compromise where you can lower the music a little bit if I'm watching TV or reading something? And if he responds, sure, I'm sorry I did that, there you got to the heart of the matter. But if I yell at him, am I getting my point across? No. He might yell back at me and tell me to leave him alone. Don't come at him like that. So sometimes we have to learn how we're going to communicate with the person. I always say with a humble heart and a sweetheart here and a sweetheart there would get you many ways to speak to the person. Arguing is not the solution. It might provoke a trigger. It might instigate something, that you're not looking for. While I have spoken throughout my podcast, if anybody up here would like to say a testimony, have you guys been in a relationship where you separated and still went back?
To activate call return, dial 1. Otherwise, hang up.
Okay, I don't know who that was, but I muted the person. Sorry. So if anyone has anything to say, no judgmental. Anybody can say up here what they feel.
We're sorry you are experiencing problems. Please try again later.
Okay. Sorry, I had to mute that person. If anybody up here believes in someone reconciling after a domestic violence dispute, you can say something. Do you believe the persons can actually get back together, or should they separate? I'm here to hear any opinion anyone has up here. And please don't be shy. You have me up here discussing the pros and cons. Anyone has any questions? Basically anything. Oh, we got some shies, kings, and queens tonight. No one wants to opinion on why a relationship should stay together. Does anybody believe in a marriage? They should, try. I'm telling you, I didn't. I tried. I honestly tried, but I couldn't continue. Sorry, but not sorry. Like I said, I'm not here to break relationships, but does anybody believe that after a domestic violence dispute that someone is able to stay together? Anyone? I got some people up here. Don't tell me you're shy. Have you been married? Oh, geez. Okay. I got some shy people tonight. It's okay. So, all right. because I will be ending the podcast in a few minutes. Unfortunately, I do have to mentor somebody after my program, and I scheduled them about this time. If you guys are still going to be connected, my friend John Monroe will be on at 8 for Vision Care. Please support him. I will be cutting my podcast today 20 minutes early due to the fact I have to mentor someone that needs me tonight. Have an awesome night. I'll speak to all you guys next Wednesday. My kings and queens, have a good afternoon. And don't be shy next Wednesday, please. Please don't be shy. So have a good night, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday with another topic.